again if you're here for just watching me beat up some Chaos Empire people. This is the wrong scenario. This will be a lot of lore and lots of interesting stuff from my point of view, but no fighting. So this was your warning, and now we're gonna start. Already I described what happened at the end of the last scenario. Basically we unlocked this chamber where the Lady of Light is supposed to be sleeping or sealed or something, and now we're going in. And first thing to know is, why are the units we are gonna see the ones who go in? Like Gallus, because he's the leader of the whole Elven trust we have around. So he's the fitting person to meet one of the greatest sages and heroes of the elves. Then Elinde, in case there is some magical component to waking her up. Then Elinde said only those two should go, but Gallus overruled her and brought Malkesher and Unayo with him, because they were so instrumental in leading him there. Malkesher we've seen like on the forefront in the battles, but Unayo was basically doing logistical stuff, organizing everyone, and that's why she's coming through. Let's start. Well, here we are. I guess I was wrong to expect our heroes to be sleeping right by the entrance. Alright, and Alturin is also because of this. Wow, this place is much larger on the inside. Oh. Huh? Someone bumped into me. Who is there? Sorry, I saw you coming into this temple and I thought, well, the other elves scare me and you saved me from the undead back there, so begone, goblin. This is no place for such a lowly creature like you. Oh, you can come with us. I'm sure the Lady of Light will not mind the intrusion of a goblin and its pet wolf considering the circumstances. Glares at Malkesher. Oh, many thanks, my lady. I'd never been treated so well by non-goblins. Many thanks. No. Elves these days. This is... I cannot believe we are about to meet one of our ancestors and her human companion in life. I wonder what they look like. I imagine they look like every other elf or human sorcerer, just much more powerful. And maybe even terrifying. Find the Lady of Light and the Master of Darkness. So, this is a cutscene scenario, but there are a extremely small fighting component or exploring component. So this is like 5 turns at most, so I counted it as a cutscene scenario. So, gates. We should be wary of any traps or enchantments set up to protect our heroes from hostile outsiders. Elinde, could you inspect that gate? Sure. So, move her next to there. The chest is empty. Not surprising, actually. Ah, it's a corpse, I think. These bones appear to have belonged to a dwarf. Interesting, makes me wonder if they killed him or if he was just left behind. This doesn't react to anything. Nope. Oops, just checking if I can trigger stuff. But apparently that is everything for now. Nothing but bugs and dust in this barrel. Then... Okay, so... apparently only Elinde can do anything with that door. Makes sense, it's a standard object. Oh, come on. So I skipped the first sentence, so they're reloading. There's a stone tablet nearby. Here in this chamber lies the slayer of the Demon Lord, protector of the elves of Erdia, wielder of the power of the Union, Elinde, the Lady of Light. Only those born of fairy and the sacred earth of Erdia shall be allowed within a resting place. May her eternal sleep end once the wounds inflicted upon Erdia have healed. There doesn't seem to be anything else special about this gates. Why does it only mention her? I believe you fit the description, but I'm unsure about the healing part. Still, we have faced all kinds of trials and braved numerous dangers to get here. There's no turning back now. Onwards. Gate opening sound. The group entered a massive chamber at the center of the underground temple. The place was abundantly illuminated through openings in the tall ceiling, rendering their torches and magic pointless. The whole chamber appeared to have been built, but not by an ancient civilization, but by the earth itself. Standing out amidst the chamber was a lush courtyard, enclosed by 5 trees in a geometric arrangement, with a 6th tree in the middle of all. An eerie gust of wind from the deep abyss below extinguished the fires as though intent on protecting the secret sanctuary from harm. Hello there? Anybody at home? There's no one here, but... Ow! Did we arrive too late? Oh, that's bad news. Or kill the intruders. We are the forest elves of the Wall of Illinia. You must let us pass. Protect the Lady of Light. They're gonna kill us. Enough of this nonsense. Ooh. Malikesha, what do you think you are doing? Something I should have done long ago. Unto me, whip of the dark gods. Ooh. No need to thank me. Behold. On the ground where the white tree at the center of the chamber stood moments before, now lay a beautiful elven lady. In a previous age, when Erdia was green and white, anyone who glanced at the radiant pale skin and glistening fairy wings would have been able to discern its identity without a second thought. Even as she slept, a strong bond with the essence of light illuminated her surroundings and protected her from harm. The legends told of a lavender-haired heroine of the elves, and lauded her everlasting grace and splendor, but Gallus never imagined if truth could possibly surpass the historical accounts. Neither did he imagine how it would render him completely dumbstruck, unable to greet her as it was required of him as Lord of the Elves. She is... Come forth, light of the first gods, awaken your blessed emissary from a millennial sleep. Works? Who has awakened me? Points at Gallus. Whoa. Unaya points at Gallus. Gallus just... Are you serious? Elves? I must be dreaming. Actually, no, not at all. Necromancer, your kind is not welcome here. Say your last words. No, he doesn't mean any harm, Lady Illinia. He is our ally. Ally, you say? Who are you, strangers, and why have you come to interrupt my sleep? Right, I forgot to introduce ourselves. I am Lord Gallus of the Elves of the Wall of Illinia, my lady. These are Elinde, my loyal advisor, and leader of the Elven Council at Telchior's Hold. Lady Onaya, High Sorceress of our people. Alturin, High Rune Master of the Dwarvish Kingdom of Herfgar. And this is Malkesher, the Harbinger of Dread. A title I just made up so I don't seem out of place among those big names. I'm eager, but I fear I don't have any titles or feats to brag about. I mean, I appreciate that you would name a warrior after me, but Lord Gallus, do you even realize that you are standing beside 2 criminals condemned by Elvenkind? How could this depravity come to be? Is this truly Talios' legacy? How am I supposed to trust the elves of this time now? Because I presume it has been long since the fall, hasn't it? And you are the descendants of Lord Talion, aren't you, Lord Gallus? Perhaps? I beg your pardon, my lady, but the only person here who I am aware has committed past crimes against Elvenkind is Malkasha, and I've specifically allowed him amongst us so he could guide us to the Heart Mountains, and to you. So you were raised unaware of the most crucial chapter of your people's history. That actually makes sense. Why are you all here today? Because the demons have returned, my lady. This time in greater numbers and backed by an empire established by the humans of the southern deserts during the last few centuries. They decimated our defenses, razed our lands and slaughtered countless innocent civilians before we finally left our home to request help from you and the Master of Darkness, who seems to be absent for some reason. The Lady of Light seemed suddenly distraught at Elender's word. She breathed deeply and turned around, trying to avert the inquisitive glances, and remained silent for a moment. And then she turned around once again. Again, the Master of Darkness is dead. I never imagined. It pains me to have to admit this truth to you. After our victory against the demon Lord Zangor and Wesnoth, in Westmere many elves, your ancestors, Lord Gallus, were convinced that we were like gods, immortal and invincible, the exclusive wielders of the only power that could rival the demon's own. But it was only by sheer fortune that we survived that battle, and our lives, even though they truly exceed the norm of our kind and span, are as fragile as those of everyone else. We learned this the only possible way, by one of us dying. As to how it happened, I suppose I might as well tell you of the world-changing events that led up to it. Our stories are more closely intertwined than you might suspect, Lord Gallus, and because our people have apparently forgotten the tragedies that befell us all at the end of times, I shall try my best to provide you with my own abridged account. You have to know the truth that Elender has kept from you for so long. But I must warn you, if the lawkeepers of Elvenkind chose to not pass this knowledge on to you and your forefathers, it would be highly unwise of us to do otherwise now that our civilization is once again on the brink of extinction, and susceptible to the influence of demons hailing from Inferno. Which is why all of you standing here before me now are forever bound to keep this a secret. Sit down and listen well. Once upon a time, the great continent was dominated by many human kingdoms united under a single banner, the banner of the Empire of Wesnoth. But elves and dwarves were here first, and inhabited the vast green forests and tall mountain ranges. Although they had come to see the humans of Wesnoth as valuable friends, many remembered that the humans first arrived to the continent with legions of orcs and pursued. But by the Golden Age, we had all managed to set our differences aside and prosper together. South of the Hearth Mountains lay one of the greatest and oldest domains of our kind, Westmere. For long it served as a capital of our civilization, with its Elven Council, the Kaalion, however it is actually pronounced, holding greater authority than our own kings and laws. The members of the Kalian valued knowledge over all other things, and they sought to plunder all the secrets of Eardia for the greater good. In time, this would bring about our downfall. But the first step towards ending our peaceful lives was taken not by elvenkind, but by the Empire of Wesnoth. At the time, the human emperor saw his popularity among his subjects dwindle. He saw fit to take advantage of an otherwise unremarkable incursion of undead in Orcish territory led by a powerful necromancer said to have been destroyed countless times before. You must still remember the small cacher. I've lived for, I don't know, thousands of years, and you suddenly expect me to remember one specific instance of me terrorizing despicable creatures? It served as a perfect excuse for the Emperor of Wesnoth to take the fate of Eardia into his own hands. He ordered his magi to gather masters and students from all academies throughout the land. Together they lifted a mountain into the skies to shine forth, force all soldiers of darkness to retreat underground until the end of times. That is Naya, the second sun. Centuries later, things happened in Cosmere. There's no one still alive who remembers exactly how it all began. And in the end, Argen and I had to rely on hearsay to put together the pieces of the puzzle. As part of the experiment seeking to unveil the nature of our reality, the most skilled sorcerers in Cosmere discovered a way to open portals to another world. And from those portals emerged a young elf seer who warned them of disasters to come. Disasters that he claimed would destroy all elvish civilization, and with it, knowledge hoarded by the good people of Cosmere. He promised them protection and more knowledge in exchange for being worshipped as a god. That was Sangor, and that was the pact he proposed to elvish civilization. Knowledge begets power, and power begets ambition. The offer was only too enticing for the lords of Cosmere. Those who disagreed with the Kalian's decision to accept the Demon Lord as their god would be the first to meet him as offerings. As part of his requirements, these blood sacrifices were to remain a secret, concealed from the rest of the world. And because of this, for a long time, we remained unaware of the corruption that took root in Cosmere. Zangor's claims would prove true after but a few years following this. A nobleman by the name of Danter became Emperor of Wesnoth 6 years later, since the previous holder of the title left no heirs to take the throne. The mysterious circumstances of his decease led people to suspect Danter of regicide. With Wesnoth's civil unity at stake, 2 years later Danter saw no option but to quell his detractors with a decree for the immediate creation of Gaia, the third sun. But his confidence in his plan was too great. As Wesnoth had only seen threats of mundane origins for 2 centuries, and the old masters had long since passed away, the human magi were no longer the impressive force that once created Naya. Dante went ahead with his plan and took measures to ensure nobody could possibly interfere. Thus, to my heart's pain, I came to witness the mayhem. The Magi realized only too late that they were unable to tear the Gaia up in the skies. Their failure resulted in the fall of the third sun, and the end of an era that later came to be known as the Golden Age. The earth-shattering force of the impact caused cataclysms and eruptions all over Eardia, destroying forests, cities, rivers, even mountains. The great continent was entirely reshaped, and the fruits of civilization were destroyed all at once. Perhaps for the best. Dante did not live to see the full extent of the damage he caused. He and his Magi were murdered by the panicked people of Wesnoth, and thus the sad story came to a swift end amidst the destruction. So it's true, after all. The humans were far from the only ones who suffered the calamities that resulted from their prideful actions. Elves, dwarves, humans, and orcs. They all fought among themselves for the scarce resources left where everything green perished. Naya and Zela also contributed by drying up every source of water on the surface. And while we at Lyntania Forest had to cope with this for some time until the situation proved unsustainable, Wesnoth stood intact through everything, protected by Zangor's arcane magic. The unholy sacrifices continued, and soon he saw that he would be left with nothing to rule if the Wesnoth population waned further. His thirst for blood became increasingly difficult to quench. Luckily for him, many outsiders sought shelter in Wesnoth after the fall. He came up with a simple but effective solution to his dilemma. All foreigners, be it elves or members of any other race, were declared heretics, unworthy of his gift of life. The pain and agony of the unfortunate souls captured by the elves continued to feed him and caused his power to grow stronger and stronger. And when his prey stopped coming to Wesnoth, he sent hunters beyond the borders to obtain more sacrifices for him. Finally, Lyntania became inhospitable, and we were forced to ask refuge of the Callian. Argan and I led my people out of the ruins of the northern forests, and after a long journey across the ravaged land, we arrived at the eastern frontier of Wesnoth. Then we were ambushed. Many of our people were already weak due to the long march from Lyntania, unable to fend off the forces sent after us by Zangor's cultists. Those who didn't die during the confrontation were captured and sacrificed to the demon, as my husband later found out. He risked his life to infiltrate his capital and obtain intelligence on our enemy. Thus, we found ourselves faced with a difficult choice. Either we could stop Rythmn, the elves of the forest where he grew up, and release them from this unprecedented evil at all costs, or instead, we could avoid the onslaught and abandon their lands, thus perpetuating the demon's lord's cruel role through inaction. Had we chosen the latter, Elvenkind would likely have flourished once again, as the slaves of the demon lord, bound by that fateful pact for the rest of eternity. You certainly wouldn't be here now. Destiny works in mysterious ways, and it was only by chance that we made contact with the elves led by Lord Quertorel of Aetinwood before they could be lured into the trap by Wesnoth. Even though their military proficiency paled in comparison to that of Lyntania or Wesnoth, their larger numbers proved essential to make our plan work. Our combined forces laid siege to Wesnoth for nearly a year, before Zangor realized that the devotion and fear of his followers would never suffice to turn the tide in his favor. He then revealed his true form to the world and proceeded to slaughter all from the skies, even his own subjects. The great power he unleashed upon Erdia did not only kill almost every living creature within rage, but it also tore the forest ground asunder, while his fire and lightning took care of the rest. His power had allowed Wesnoth to survive the events of the fall, and then turned it all into a dead wasteland. With little chance of prevailing, Argan and I called upon the union of light and darkness, risking our own destruction by overexertion, and challenging a foe without precedent in Erdia's recorded history. Of course, We did defeat Zango in the end, but our power was not enough to counteract his impressive regeneration ability that allows us to kill him, which is why we only could tear his hideous body apart, seal every piece, and send him all back to Inferno. Victory was ours, but the cost was much greater than we had anticipated, and less than 500 elves of Wesnoth survived Zango's display of power, many of them priests and warriors. They surrendered and begged for forgiveness, and we did spare the civilians' lives. But the surviving priests, warriors, and Callian members met a different fate, for we could not risk the possibility of them sparking another civil war or bringing Zango or other demons back to Uria. No. We had no choice but to execute them, and then burn their bodies to ashes, in case Zango's magic could still be at work. In hindsight, it's ironic that we despise the humans so much after the hubris caused the end of all civilizations. Our kin in Wesnoth represented the entirety of our race to the rest of the world, and their transgressions were far worse in that they were fully aware of the implications of what they were doing. And in both cases, it was ultimately the flaws of just a few select individuals that doomed the rest. Perhaps, if Zango and the Callian had not conspired to destroy the integrity of Elvenkind from within, we would have been able to rebuild what we lost, given sufficient time. Although we elves rarely suffer from lapses of judgment like this, whenever it happens, the results are catastrophic for everyone involved. The recurrence of events like this throughout our history is unsettling, and it's why I fear something like this might happen again if the creatures of Inferno get involved. We had to forbid telling the more shameful details of the story to anyone, elf or otherwise, at least for a few generations. But I expected our lawkeepers to at least have the sense to educate our future leaders about our past mistakes. To be fair, my lady, I've only recently been given this title by our previous Lord Ladinor, who stayed behind in the Valley in an attempt to give us an opportunity to flee. We all owe our lives to his noble sacrifice. My lady, how does this relate to Elendere or the death of the Master of Darkness? I will get to that last part soon. As for her, Talia was responsible for sparing her life. She was amongst the cultists serving Zango and Wesnoth, one of the few who survived this final battle. I am fully aware of the crimes I committed while under Zango's command, my lady. But had I not obeyed the orders given to me, my family and I would have paid the price in blood. Not that any of that helped in the end. I can only hope their deaths turned out to be less painful than how they would have been on the altar. Where did the elves part ways? Would that you were a little more patient. After we had finished dealing with the survivors, Elendere tried to convince us to head back northeast, instead of retreating to the Sound. Talia and his people accepted her counsel, but reluctantly, while Quatorel returned south. Agin and I would have followed Quatorel's group, but a lengthy war and the final battle had weakened us, both physically and mentally. We chose a third option, which was to descend into the depths of the Hard Mountains. Along the way we were joined by a few elves, and later dwarves. Bear in mind that the dwarvish settlements underground weren't exempt from the disasters of the fall, and strong and frequent earthquakes persisted through all those years. But still, we wanted to learn more about the catalyst of Elvenkind's destruction. We remembered that sometime before the catastrophe, the dwarves had unearthed the ruin of a civilization suspected to predate ours by aeons. Seeing as how the elves no longer needed us, we decided to try and find those ruins. Instead of finding them, we became lost in the depths, and eventually one of those earthquakes caused the floor beneath our feet to collapse, leaving nothing below but a deep chasm. I held on to a ledge in time and survived, but again, he fell into the darkness. I could not find him afterwards. He always managed to escape the worst situation, but never something like that. I still hoped. I hoped he might have survived somehow, but after some time, I don't know how much, I realized that I was waiting for the impossible. The fear of our fathers was still with me at the time, convinced me that the situation was hopeless, and with Uria ruined and perishing, I thought that my only option was to sleep. Perhaps, at some point later, if the world ever recovered. The world is coming back to life, my lady, slowly but surely. Although for a good part of our journey we saw only dunes and dry plains, we also found green hills and valleys before proceeding underground. We have seen but a tiny fraction of our world in its present state, but in the country of the northern humans is rumored it's rumored to be thriving with life, and to support the Chaos Empire's army, there must also be lands like this to the south. Who is leading this empire against us, though? All their demons and humans appear to serve an emperor of some sort, but they also worship two names that were once subjects of myth: Uria and Yechnagov. It is important to keep in mind that the dwarves landed a creature called Yechnagov, attempted to eradicate a people of the desert, elves whom I presume are descended from Quetzalcoatl's band. She had the power to corrupt the souls of all surface dwellers but those elves, and if the story is true, she also knew the name of the demon lord Zanger. Though her dark influence ebbed away once she was slain by Kalisar, the humans in the south remained under the control of a powerful group of cultists. We believe this the people who later gave rise to the empire. Yechnagov, the eater of souls, and Uria, the mother of demons. This is deeply troubling. Simple humans clearly cannot control the forces of Inferno alone, so it might be that Uria is more real than we thought. I need to ponder this later. For now, let us go. So you will help us? It's my mission as a protector of elves of Erdir. It would be dishonorable of me to shirk my sworn duty. For longer than I already did, anyway. I shall help you even without Agan by my side. Thank you, my lady. Although everyone refers to me as the Lady of Light, it's not really a title or rank, Lord Gallus. You may call me Alinia if you wish. Now, guide me to the other elves, and I want to see the surface again. Yes, the surface! It's been so long since I last saw it. Finally! After such a long talk, I'd be surprised if there were still any life left out there. So, that's the point where I make a short break, let's say 10 minutes for one, so I can actually drink something, because it was a lot of talking. For two, so I have, as usual, separate videos for separate scenarios, and so people from YouTube or from Twitch can just skip the story part if they are so inclined. So, see you in 10 minutes.